Hey guys, it's SmokeMonster and welcome to the weekly stream. Tonight I'm going to show you what a modded Xbox 360 looks like in the year 2018, or pretty soon the year 2019. So we'll see if it stood the test of time, and you guys can get an idea of why you might want to grab one of these things, or maybe not. So my Xbox 360 is, I've had a few of them, and this one is the most reliable and the latest. This is a Xbox 360S, or Slim. So this is not the Slim E. When you guys get a 360, the most reliable is a 360 Slim, so not the Slim E. It's going to give you the least problems with Red Ring of Death and that kind of stuff. It was really the ultimate kind of 360. And if you're going to mod one, you can get these so cheap. I paid like 15 bucks for this one on Craigslist, and it even came with some controllers and stuff. So, if you already have a 360, and you want to mod one, and you have an older style 360, I would recommend getting a Slim and modifying it, because any 360 is going to Red Ring of Death. That's just a fact of life. The Slim E's are a little better, but the Slim S is kind of the... Oh, Slim E can't be modded, some people are saying. Well, anyways, reliability-wise, Slim S is the way to go. And those old 360s, they're gonna Red Ring of Death. I've had it happen 2 or 3 times now, and it's not fun. And I had one reballed, and I mess with all of that, and there's just no way around it. So get an Xbox 360 Slim S, and you're probably gonna want to do what I did, which is to get an Xecuter CR4 XL chip, and just have a modder install it for you. It's pretty cheap, and it'll save you like a week of your life trying to figure out how it works. I mean, if you're very good at that kind of stuff, by all means, you can do it yourself. But if not, it's $50 well spent. And you can find trusted modders over at the Team Xecuter forums. People who post pictures of their work are the ones you want to go with, obviously. And I paid a bit more for mine because there was a guy who had really nice looking work, and I checked it out when I got it, and the guy did a really good job, so it's professionally done. And while I was in there, I modified the fan to run at full blast all the time. I put it on the 12-volt line, and I also replaced all of the heatsink thermal compound with some Arctic silver, just because. I mean, why not, right? So, yeah, it's an Xbox 360 Slim CR4 XL chip. It has I have a 750 gig hard drive in there, just because that's the one I put in when I had it done a few years ago, and that's what I had. I had one laying around from a laptop, so I used it. And it's running Aurora, and Aurora is the modern OS, or it's the modern front end for your 360. So in the olden times, they would have used Freestyle or a few others, but none of those are supported. Aurora is actively supported, and I'm actually part of Xbox Unity. I do covers there. I've done like 342 covers, and that's basically because I didn't like having in my menu a bunch of games that didn't have good-looking covers. So when you, as you can see here, I've got 443 titles loaded on here, and that includes I have a huge, back in the US, gigantic Xbox 360 collection, just because it's so cheap to collect for. And then I had a ton of stuff from Xbox Live, Xbox indie games, so I was into all that stuff. And it's all kind of disappeared now, and so those of us with modified Xboxes, we can preserve that and have access to it now. The Xbox Live indie games is completely gone, so there was like several thousand games on there, some of which, there was a ton of junk, like this one, but this is a hilarious game. But there was a lot of really good stuff, and especially shooters. There were a ton of shooters, and I kind of helped. I was part of a last-ditch effort for people just to go through Xbox Live Indie Game and tell everybody what the shooters were in there, so that people could buy it right before it closed. And it's closed for good now, so it's off the face of the earth. A lot of the Xbox Live arcade games are also non-existent anymore unless you have a modified 360. So something like the only arcade port ever of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, and this is an incredible port of it too. There are a few really good Konami ports on Xbox Live for the 360, and they've since been pulled. This is one of them. X-Men is fantastic. It's over here. And these never made it to the Xbox One, unfortunately, and they came off of the Xbox Live Arcade, and you just can't get it anymore. And these are about as close to an arcade-perfect port as you could hope for. Of course, nowadays, everybody would want 4K and all of that, but I mean, I own the X-Men arcade PCB, and I own the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles PCB, and these are both, I would say, fantastic. And in fact, there's a Simpsons on here, and I was searching for The Simpsons for years, and I just kind of gave up because there's a good enough port on here, and it's like a $500 or $600 game nowadays. So, or if you want to buy it broken, you're talking even $300 now. So, yeah, there's lots of stuff like that. It's full of it, and these games don't exist out there. The only way to get them is to have a modified Xbox 360 and put them on there. XBLA, that's Xbox Live Arcade. And XBLIG is Xbox Live Indie Games, and that was where indie developers could put games up for relatively cheap. Yeah, so let me just give an overview of how this all works. So you put Aurora on, let me go back to the top of my menu. You hit X and you can get to a text menu here if you don't want to like scroll through 400 titles. You put your stuff on, and you can do a bunch of different kind of cover flows. I've got a bookshelf, I think, here. And it looks beautiful. Aurora just got an update maybe 6 months ago, and they added, like, I think these animated backgrounds and a bunch of other cool stuff. Another thing that Aurora does, so Aurora is kind of plugged into the Unity, XboxUnity.net, where it can automatically grab covers. It can, you can do title updates there, so like you go to title updates in the game and you go to the Unity, and if there are any updates for the title that have come out, you can just automatically download them there. You can also, my favorite new feature of Aurora, this came in the most recent version, is you can browse the covers right from the menu, and you can see mine is in here. I've done a couple of them for Ares, and yeah, if you want to change your cover, you just click on it and you can download it. I like to do full covers that cover the whole thing without the banner at the top and bottom when I can. But so Xbox 360, you're like, well, Xbox One is out, why would I want the 360? There's a ton of exclusive games for it, and if you are especially a fan of like spaceship shooters, shoot 'em ups, the Xbox 360 is kind of your console. Let me just flip over to my shoot 'em up section where I have most of my shooters now. I've pulled in here. I've just named them shooter to keep them all together. And I think there's around 150 shoot 'em ups altogether. You can't connect, so in our Aurora is set up, you can't connect to Xbox Live, but you connect to like the Unity service. Brain Forber's asking in the chat. So it automatically blocks connecting to Xbox Live because you would probably instantly ban for having a modified 360 on there. You can see I've done a bunch of these covers. And a bunch of people have done covers, and you can hit up on the controller to see the back of it if you want to. It's not super exciting, and you're really limited by the resolution here. Death Smiles, I mean, just incredible shooters. So many near arcade perfect ports of cave shooters if you're into those. Which I think I'll play Mushihime-sama Futari later, after I play some Tiger Woods. I'm gonna warm up with like a couple rounds maybe. I know that's very exciting. But they just keep going. Oh, here's an awesome one. Well, not awesome. An interesting one. King of Fighters. Shoot 'em up. You've probably never heard of. King of Fighters Sky Stage. Mochi Mochi Pork and Pink Sweets. Original Mushihime-sama and Futari are there. And then like games like this, Xbox Live Arcade. You'll see some Xbox Live indie games pop up here and there. I think I put those all towards the back. I mean, you can also do, like, not into these anymore. Used to be, use the Xbox 360 for emulators. It's kind of ridiculous now because my computer is about 10 million times more powerful. But you can jump right in. You can set it up to jump right into PlayStation games here. And it's it was a good enough emulation for, you know, that was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Nowadays I wouldn't do that. A lot of just really good stuff. Raiden fires aces, Raiden 4, awesome game. And a lot of these you can get on the Xbox One now. Some of these are super rare, as you might notice. Sin and Laura, that's on Xbox One for sure. Looks really good. My friend Saburi has that. So here's Tempest. Lots of people love that. And they just keep going. I mean, I'll scroll a little faster here, but just because I'm trying to give you a concept. These are just shoot-em-ups. Oh, there's one missing a cover. That's rare. I did that. I mean, I did about 75% of the covers you're looking at. I made myself, and that includes the front and back artwork, and then a sidebar too that says the name of the game. Some of them, I mean, they're just not great games, but I mean, that doesn't mean they should be lost to time. Here's a really cool shoot 'em up. I think this is Xbox Live Indie Games. Nobody knows about it. Crescendo Symphony. I could show that later. And a lot of forgettable stuff, a lot of really interesting stuff. Esperanza and Telekinesis Time. Every Other Shooter is a really good one. Some really vanilla, generic kind of stuff too, of course. You're going to have that. That's what the Xbox Indie Games was famous for, was the amount of bad content on there. It's almost like the Nintendo Switch downloadable library. It's just 99% garbage, but then there's stuff sprinkled in there. Really good stuff. And it's kind of a shame that Microsoft abandoned their indie developers the way they did. They just left them hanging. They didn't get their stuff onto Xbox One, and they basically just killed 10 years of really passionate development that people were doing. Here's one you can use, 3D TV. There's a few of those. That kind of came and went, didn't it? And there's even a few like stereoscopic 3D games. Here's Mechfish. Oh, this is a cool one. Mega Shooter 11, like an NES-styled shooter. So tons of cool stuff. We're still in shooters. Pixelocity. Oh, this is on like every platform ever. Platypus. Going way back. Prismatic Solid. There's 3 of these retro ones. Shoot 1 Up. Okay, now here's a $1. This was a $1 game that you could buy, and it was like the best $1 you ever spent. This is an incredible shooter. Lost now. Yeah, it's an indie game. Lost to time forever here. They do not exist. You cannot play them unless the developers took them to Steam or something, which most of them didn't, because they were developing in that XNA, which was supposed to be the next big thing. I assume it never took off. Shoot Shimi. I own this on like... I have this on the, let's see, on the Vita, on the PSP, I think. Or Snops Attack. So you can see, like, every style of shooter is represented in here. Steam and Metal, like a steampunk-styled shooter. Whatever that means anymore. Twin Tiger Sharks, awesome. Awesome indie game. Another one lost to time. And some of these are really hard to search for even on the service, because if they had Japanese characters in their name, it was using your controller, it was hard to come across them. And none of them were sorted correctly. So you would search for shooter, shoot 'em up, and the majority of these indie ones would not come up if they were Japanese. So we're all into indie games at this point here. There's Xevious. That was Xbox Live Arcade. So some of these are unsorted here. And that's the end of the shooters. So that was all just shooters, to give you an idea. Yeah, I would love to have an Xbox 360. Oh, I'm not doing a good before. I would love to have an Xbox 360 cabinet, arcade cabinet. It would be the perfect donor for one. Like I said, my friend Saburi, I helped him get his all set up, his 360, and he has it hooked up to a Sony Trinitron XBR 960, which, and it looks beautiful. And I know some people don't like those HD Trinitrons, but man, I'm a huge fan. It's the best I've ever seen a 360 look. But I've never seen it on a BVM. I only have PVMs, which I've hooked mine up to a PVM, and it looks perfectly fine. And it just depends on the style of game. A lot of these shooters really lend themselves to 240p well, and then a lot of games just don't look so good. And it's always going to be like that when you're talking about 240p. This is not a very strong beer. Yeah, Lindbergh, Vulix, those would all be perfect. I've seen a few people who put 360s in their cabs. But let me just show you a little more of how Aurora works here. And so you've got your, we're looking right now at the games list, obviously. And I love that it just boots straight into the games, because anytime that a modified system boots to a menu or something, it's just a little less interesting. And I think that Aurora with Aurora on a 360 is one of the best looking front ends for any console, just jumping into your games. I mean, I don't understand why a 360 or an Xbox One doesn't jump into something exactly like this. It's just a great way to present your games. You can do, there's screenshots, trailers, everything in here. Game descriptions, game ratings, you can get to all of that through Aurora. Just hit Y, and it's all in there. You can manage your saves, you can do all sorts of stuff, so it's a really cool system. Here's a gem of the Xbox 360 that doesn't get enough attention. Sonic CD was ported by the guy who made Sonic Mania. What's his name? Beautiful port. And there's so many garbage, horrible, especially Sega Genesis and Neo Geo ports on the Xbox 360. But like mixed in there were some incredible ports, and this is one of them. Sonic CD is really good. And speaking of great ports, there's actually there's two others that I should talk about while we're on that subject. Street Fighter 3 Third Strike is a really nice port. I mean, not all of us can afford a CPS3 setup with a Dark Soft multi in there, so this is a good option. And used to be able to play online, probably still can. Another cool feature of Aurora is that you can look in the game and it'll tell you once you've booted the game up if it's link compatible. And what that means is that you could play as if you're on Xbox Live against a friend if they have a modified 360 with Aurora and they boot up the same game. Let's see, what was the other port? Oh, Bob, Retro RGB reminded me of this port that's on here because he owns a... I'll get to it and you can see it. Bob has Mortal Kombat 3, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 arcade PCB, and I told him I was really jealous of that. But for those of us who don't have the PCB, this is a really good port too on here. Once you turn off all the screen filtering and all of that. Actually, the whole Mortal Kombat arcade collection is pretty good. I mean, it could be worse, right? And then there are just some god-awful ports mixed in here. I'm not gonna lie. Metal Slug, all the SNK stuff is garbage. Just avoid that like the plague. If you really want to play that, you can put MAME on here and do that, but just avoid those. It's not even worth. I mean, it's just an insult to the actual games. They're so bad. I've heard they're doing a lot better job now. But that really, between all of the bad ports of SNK stuff, they really did a disservice to the Neo Geo. Anyways, so the way this works, you've got your into your dash here, and like if I wanted to transfer files on here, there's two ways I could do it. I could either FTP in, and the details for that are, let's see, hit start. Oh no, that's not it. Hit select, and there's your IP address, and it's just whatever you have your password set to. I think it's Xbox and password by default. You can manage your scripts. I mean, you don't use this stuff too much. If you hit start, you get into like where you manage your assets, and from here you can tell it what you want to download from Unity. And like I limited screenshots to 2 because I don't want like 10 million screenshots on here because I have so many games. But it'll just automatically download all that stuff when it detects the games. Set your paths, which is important for like your non-game stuff. So name, all that kind of stuff. Modules are automatically taken care of for you. And then in here, it automatically, when a new release comes out, there's no messing around. It just automatically updates. It'll say there's a download available. You just hit download, and it'll just do the process in like 30 seconds, and you're up to the newest Aurora. It's pretty awesome when that happens. And they don't update Aurora like willy-nilly. Like you get really good stuff every single time they do it, and they sort of space their releases out sometimes by a year or two. So it's always look forward to a new Aurora release. And yeah, so this is Aurora. Hit X if you don't want to do it. I mean, if you know exactly where you want to go, what game you want to scroll to. This is how I get around most of the time, unless I'm showing it off to people. But let me show really quick what the old dash, this is what a lot of people still have. This is like if you JTagged your old 360 and you haven't kept up to date and you haven't gotten to Aurora yet, this is what you would have booted into. My drinking and toasting from Retro RGB for sure. Here's to you guys. Thanks for watching. So you can see it's very kind of clunky and a little old-fashioned, and you can't do the same kind of stuff that you could do. But I mean, everybody gets used to what they're used to. So if this is what you're used to, this might be better for you. But Aurora, hasn't been maintained for like at least 5 or 6 years, I believe. So the other thing is, when you've installed Aurora, it kind of takes over whatever you call this home screen, and you get your you get a spread there of your temperatures, which it's always good to keep an eye on a temperature on a 360, and you can also jump straight back to Aurora from there. Unless you're in if you're in an OG Xbox game, you have to reset your console. But from all the other games, you can jump back to Aurora from there. And you can see every time it boots, it will do this. I mean, depending on how many games you have. That's kind of one of the reasons that I stuck with 750 gigabytes too. Like if you have like a full 2 terabytes drive with like, I don't know, all 2,000, games in Xbox Live Arcade or whatever, it could take like a minute just to boot up there. But yeah, you can get, this is an awesome game here. So much cool stuff. And I would hate to have bought all of this and I mean, it doesn't disappear. If you owned it on your Xbox Live Arcade, you could always still get to that from your 360, but if you didn't buy it and it went offline, it's lost forever. Oh, I think this is a really bad port of Altered Beast, but the cover, I did the cover, so I just left it on there. I'm just going to scroll around in here for a minute while I drink and talk. Oh, the great Batman game started on the 360, really? Not including the original Batman on the NES. And like Gotham Racer. It's awesome. Oh, here's an awesome game. It's beautiful Katamari. But you'll see a lot of mixed in with... I mean, I don't have a ton of actual Xbox 360 games on here. I have the ones that I own, and that's about it. But I have tons of Xbox Live Arcade stuff. Just because I do fear, like somebody mentioned earlier, things disappearing and becoming hard to find. And this is the kind of stuff that is really easy to disappear. Xbox Live indie games probably disappeared. I doubt there's anywhere online that you could get that stuff now. I'm just guessing. Maybe someone somewhere backed it up, but I mean, it's not anywhere that I would know where to look. So that stuff, for all intents and purposes, is pretty much gone. And it's a damn shame. And it's really, to me, it was really insulting when Microsoft said they were going to do that. Because I was actually a fan of the Indie Arcade. You can see, I'll show you a few emulators that I left on here just because, I mean, I configured them 5 or 6 years ago and they still work, so why not? But here's really one of the jewels of the whole OG Xbox and Xbox 360, and now the Xbox One even got a port of this. Crimson Skies. Go to your local game store, shell out the $199 or $299 on this, for complete inbox and perfect condition, and buy Crimson Skies. It's just an incredible experience. You have to play it on a big TV and sit relatively close. It's like the next best thing to virtual reality. Darkstalkers, is a cool one. Death Goat. There's a few goat-themed games in here. I'm not sure what's up with that. Dig Dug. Oh, I spent a lot of time on this cover, I think. It was one of the early ones I did before I was very good at it. Not a great port. The problem with ports of Dig Dug is, like, they always feel laggy. I have the actual arcade PCB of Dig Dug, and I have Namco Arcade Classics Volume 2 PCB, which is ultra rare, and that has Dig Dug 2 on it. Which will never get a perfect port of Dig Dug 2 because it's actually a 32-bit PCB, and you'd have to basically... You just have to put up with what's in MAME. That would require a ton of work to port it. There's a good Echo the Dolphin, I think. So here's a few emulators. I think I put them all together. We have Final Burn Alpha. These, like, you know, I wouldn't use them nowadays, but it's better than playing the Sonic or Sonic 2 ports, or Metal Slug if you're going to do that. This is a better option still than that, but that's like saying, you know, I'd rather be hit over the head with a tack hammer than a sledgehammer kind of thing. Or like I'd rather have the red licorice than the black licorice. They're both disgusting, right? Some really old stuff. Nestopia. Yeah, I didn't even bother with covers for those. There's Super Nintendo emulator. Used to use that a lot at the beach to play Bomberman with my wife. Another goat-themed game, Escape Goat. I did this cover. It's actually a pretty cool one. Explosion Aid, really cool one here. I did this cover. I'm not going to say every single cover I did because I'd just be saying I did this cover, did this cover, this cover, because I did almost all these. Fighting Vipers. Where's Beast? Wasn't he saying he wanted this PCB the other day? And if you don't see games in here, it's probably because like I got really furious about it and deleted it. Because I have tried a lot of games that didn't make the cut. And I really don't... Here's Goat Simulator and Goat Simulator More Goats Edition. I haven't played those. Guilty Gear. I mean, lots of... Also, if you're a fighters fan, or basically if you're an arcade fan, the 360 is an incredible platform. Incredible shooters. Incredible fighters. Half Minute Hero. Awesome game. Worth every penny. You've got your big chunk of Halos, of course. I'm a fan of Halo. I mean, the old Halos are what got me into the new generations of gaming. Remember when the Xbox came out? Hey, Franklin Brown. Heavy Recoil. Incredible, incredible game. That's an Xbox Live indie game, I believe, so can't play it, sorry. Unless you have a modded 360. I made a game with zombies in it. That's basically making fun of the Xbox Live Indie Arcade because it was all like if you went to the Z section, there are about 10 million zombie games for whatever reason, and it's like that on all these online platforms. I haven't played a Halo since ODST. I don't think it was the last one I played all the way through. Nice arcade port of Joust. I did this cover. Jurassic Park Operation Genesis. I'm told one of these is... Someone was telling me it was pretty good. I haven't played them. But there's a bunch of King of Fighters games. In addition to that King of Fighters Shoot 'em Up KOF. There's 98, 2002. Neo Wave. Oh, I think this one, actually, this might not work. This is an original Xbox game. I think one of them glitched out, I remember. But I did a cover anyways. Bunch of awesome Lord of the Rings games, so I did covers for those, of course. Lost. I took the regular game art and I just made it high definition because I can't stand fuzzy game cover art. That's one of my big pet peeves. Not a great game, unfortunately, but come on. I mean, what more can you ask for? A Lost game. Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Ultimate. Good stuff. Another thing you can do, you can manage your DLC. Like this one, I'll show you the game updates, how that works again. I think this one had a few. So title updates, like, let's say you didn't have any on here. So if you wanted to, if you bought the game, obviously you can't connect it to Xbox Live, but you want to get the game update, all you have to do is click on it in here and it will automatically download it from Unity, and then you go to your installed and you just hit A to enable or disable it. So it's enabled here. So I'm on version 3, the most recent title update to it. Whatever that did, I don't know, but it updated something. Got stuff, all sorts of stuff on here. My nephew played some Minecraft back before he got spoiled with other versions of it. Mortal Kombat vs. DC. I was watching Beast play some Mr. Driller the other day. He has the arcade PCB. It's Namco System 12. Oh, incredible game. I don't know if I played this one though. No, I haven't. Miss Pac-Man did this cover. And then, like, I think this one even has a translation patch for it. I'm not sure if I ever got that working completely. Namco Museum, I mean, what system is this not on, right? Has some good stuff, but again, like, it's hard to play. I can't play this Dig Dug version in the Namco Museum. It's just too laggy, and that's a game it requires too much control. Is that Dragon Spirit or something in the middle? Need for Speed. These are actually, like, Need for Speed Undercover is a lot of fun. And you just have to take my word for that. Try it out. You'll like it. Most Wanted. Some of them aren't so good, and then there are a few that are good. I mean, you just have to stomach the stupid cutscenes. You're going to get the idea that I'm into arcade games. There's an awesome port of Knights in here. I think it's by the original Sonic team who did Knights, if I remember correctly. Beautiful, slightly higher resolution. This is actually a pretty cool one. This Bikini Samurai Squad. Outland, wow, incredible platformer. I think this might be on Xbox One now. Yeah, oh, speaking of another incredible game, Outrun and Outrun 2. I think this Outrun 2000 is what you call this one. Awesome, awesome ports. You gotta play these, and you can grab this relatively cheap. The disc. Pac-Man DX. This one's on a lot of platforms too. There's a really good port, upscaled graphics. So it's like HD Panzer Dragoon Aurora. Incredible. This is one, I don't think this is on the Xbox One, is it? It should be. This should have been Crimson Skies and Panzer Dragoon Aurora. Parasitus, another awesome platformer. I mean, you can see there's so much really cool 2D stuff kind of in that Shovel Knight style. Kind of genre flicks of pixel art, really, is what I would call it. And, like, here's these Rain Slick games are really incredible, too. I haven't gotten very far into that, though. There's several of them. I have 3 and 4, because those are the ones that I bought. I mean, if I were to lose out everything that I bought, I could be out $1,000. I don't really know. Like, it's a huge amount of money, so a modded 360 is really important to me. I want to preserve that kind of part of my life, you know? Nobody expects an online marketplace to shut down, but when it happens fast, and you don't have enough time to prepare for it. So, like, indie games, it went down with, like, a 1-month notice, and that wasn't even enough time for us to, like, a bunch of people to get together and find all the shooters. Like, we were finding shooters every single day. There were more and more and more and more shooters. And so we had a huge list, and then it just got cut off, and then at that point, who knows? They're gone, you know? Phantom Breaker is a really cool game. Some of these you'll have heard of, some not so much. The pinball games are good if you get all the DLC. These platformance games are really good, too. Really nice pixel art. Really good, like, Indiana Jones theme, and they really are puzzle games, essentially, puzzle platformers. Here you have a chunk of, like, PlayStation games. I could really delete these off here if I needed space. Those would be the first ones to go. Quantum Redshift is a really good Xbox game. I forgot that was even on here. This is one that I was playing. I was just testing out my OG Xbox hooked up to my PVM, my 2030, and I had Quantum Redshift in it, so I started playing it. I played it for like 2 or 3 hours that day. Just an awesome game. Really cool, like, pod racer. There's some Rayman games. Those, of course, are on a million platforms, so you might as well play them on Xbox One or PS4 or whatever. And here, really, like I asked the other day on Twitter, would you buy a console for one game? And the answer should have been yes. And most people said yes. Because, especially as an arcade gamer, like I've shelled out a lot of money for just one game here and there. And you could shell out a ton of money for one game here and there with arcade games. And to me, like, if a console has one game that's great, it's worth buying. So Atari Jaguar has Tempest. Like, regardless of anything else that's on the Atari Jaguar, it's worth buying because it has Tempest. And if the Xbox 360 had only one game, and that game was Red Dead Redemption, I would have a Red Dead Redemption console. Because I love this game. And it's not the style of game at all that you would think I would like. It's not the style of game I play. But it's kind of like, it transports you into the Wild West. And it's really well... It's well done. It's not... I mean, it doesn't take itself completely seriously, but it takes it seriously enough that you kind of feel like you're in the game. So, I mean, really, as much as I love all the other games on here, this is definitely my number one Xbox 360 game. And it's the reason that I'm going to... I mean, the second that I heard this was coming to Xbox One, I was like, well, unfortunately, I didn't want an Xbox One, and now I know that I have to get it. So I'm going to have to get an Xbox One And then since then, I found there's actually quite a few games that I'll like on it. So, I mean, like the PS4 has a lot better shooters, and the Switch even is getting tons of shooter ports. And the Switch actually has another killer app for me, that golf game. I really want to play that, RPG golf. So I'm gonna have to get a Switch just for that one game, and then I'll find the rest of the library from there. And the same thing with Xbox One. Has Red Dead Redemption and Red Dead Redemption 2, so I'm gonna have to buy it. And you can play Red Dead Revolver too. Totally different game, but another game that I loved back when I was doing my bachelor's in college the first time, before I went and got my master's. There's some cool stuff, like Remember Me, a Capcom game, like games that really need more attention. Retro City Rampage, which, if nothing else, it has a DeLorean on the cover, and as a former actual DeLorean owner, I approve of any game with DeLoreans in it. It used to be rare to find a game with DeLoreans in it. Nowadays, yeah, Golf Story. Thank you, Sterling. Nowadays, there's DeLoreans in like every racing game. They're really like in fashion now because of whatever that movie was. I bought my DeLorean and it wasn't even an expensive car. It cost less than most of my friends' like used Mustangs cost them. Oh, there's a good port of Rocket Knight. Oh, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I made this cover. Did an NES theme for it. Just awesome game, awesome music, you know, Scott Pilgrim. And there's also a lot of really good racing games on the 360. I mean, maybe not the greatest games you've ever played, and especially, I kind of have the feeling that racing games are kind of the best on the most current platform if you're talking about simulation. But if you're talking about like arcade style racing, hell, I'd be happy. I have no problem playing racers on my Sega Saturn still. 2D racers, perfectly fine with that. And Sega Rally is a great game. Here's a really cool one that really needs more attention. Serious Sam Double D XXL. I did this cover. Like a really over the top, insane Contra style game with, you can see you stack up your and you have to watch the trailers for this game. It's really hilarious. You stack up your weapons, so you don't just have one gun, you stack like 10 guns and then you fight a giant dinosaur. You know, it's pretty cool. Shoot many robots. Okay, we're into the shooters again, so I'll skip to the end of those if you'll bear with me, since we already went through those at the beginning. And you can count them. I'm pretty sure there's right around 150 altogether. And then that excludes the Xbox Live Indie games that we weren't able to turn up before it went down, but that's just the way it goes. Again, here's another game where really it's worth the entire price of an Xbox 360, and to get it modified and do everything, it still costs you less than the Simpsons arcade PCB, plus you get all this other stuff to go with it. And it's actually cheaper than a broken Simpsons arcade PCB at this point. And this is a fantastic port. For whatever reason, Simpsons, Turtles, and X-Men were not ported to, I don't think, anything ever. The actual arcade games, I mean. So here it is, the only way to play the I'll actually start this one up so you can see how you get back to the menu from Aurora, and we can watch the intro here. But actually, you know what? I can't show this. It's gonna give me a content trigger if I do that. So let's go back to Aurora. Just hit your home button. I'm no longer letting companies monetize my videos. I don't like that. Yeah, it's crazy. Brian's talking about how cheap it is to mod an Xbox 360. They are giving away 360s right now, and Metal Jesus Rocks has talked about how great it is to collect 360. Like, 360 is so underappreciated and so cheap right now. You can buy a giant collection for under $100. You can buy a 360 for $15 to $20, and you can have it modded for $40, $50 if you have it, if you find someone local. If not, I mean, I would pay up to $100 for it. And what you want to tell the modder when you're having it modded, and the mod, by the way, that $50 that I paid to have mine modded included the chip. If you get a Team Xecuter, if you go with someone who is one of their trusted modders, they actually get the chips cheaper. So you might as well go with them because you'll get the chip and the install for like $50, $60. You can pay a little bit more like I did. I actually think I paid like $75 or something for mine. But I could have paid $50, but I went with a guy who had pictures of his work up. Anyways, tell them you want CR4 XL. That's the most modern chip you want. It's an RGH mod, obviously. Send them a mini SATA, whatever you call it, 2.5-inch hard drive of whatever size you want. So you might as well go with a minimum of 1 terabyte just because. Send them a 2 terabyte. And tell them you want it set up to boot straight into Aurora, so that when you get it back, you turn it on and you get into Aurora. And at that point, and also, of course, tell them that you're going to be playing Xbox Live Arcade and Xbox Live Indie games, because there's a couple of tweaks that they need to do to get that working. But at that point, when you get it back, you have just saved a month of your life of having to learn how all this stuff works, really, because you'll never have to touch the core of it again. And then you can just start learning how. I'm not going to do, by the way, I'm not going to answer any questions in the comments in the future if people post, like, how do I do this, how do I do that? I'm not going to answer them because 360 really is very complicated, and there is a learning curve even when you're just talking about transferring your content to it. You don't just FTP it in there. You have to use something like the Xbox 360 Content Manager, and you have to learn how to do these things. But you'll learn that. You know, once you have it in front of you, it's much simpler because you've basically fast-forwarded past all the really hard stuff, and you're into just like, okay, I have Windows, I just need to learn how to use the software at that point. But yeah, that's my spiel. So tell your modder you want CR4 XL, send them a hard drive already so that they don't have to mess with that, and tell them you want it set up to boot into Aurora, and then you're golden. And from there, anybody with half a brain can figure out how this stuff works. Here's a PC game, Bermuda Syndrome. So this is an actual homebrew game that's free that you can put on your 360, Bermuda 360. It's basically an emulator that just runs that Bermuda Syndrome game, which a lot of people are really fond of. Exceed, another really cool platformer. And you can see how much cool 2D stuff there is in here that you've probably never heard of, because I'd never really heard of it until I spent a lot of time looking for it. There's your typical Xbox Worms games. Here's another real gem of the 360. I bought this way early on. Wizorb. Incredible RPG. And pretty sure this is on Xbox One and PS4 and all that. But Bob had the developer of this on the weekly roundup, Retro RGB, and it was pretty cool. So Wheel of Fortune. Sometimes you just need a game to play with your wife. This one is a good one to play with your wife, especially if she's learning English and she wants to play a game. So I played way too much Wheel of Fortune. I'm really sick of this game. Unfortunately, they didn't put any time into it, and like, it's just so repetitive. You'll know what I'm saying if you play it. War of the Worlds, or War World, is a really cool, lots of people consider this kind of a hidden gem kind of game. Here's War of the Worlds, which I believe disappeared off the marketplace really early on for whatever reason, probably licensing. It's actually a really cool, simple, platformer. Voltron, there's a game for Xbox 360. This is, I think, Xbox Live Arcade. Not a big game, you know, it's not like AAA, but it's really cool, and it plays, I would load it up if I wasn't worried about content warnings, but it plays like the cartoons intro and cutscenes from it. It's really cool if you're a Voltron fan, if you grew up with Voltron. And man, talk about getting your money's worth. There's 2 Virtual On games on the 360. Probably really hard to find, I imagine. These were really hard to track down when I got them. But, I mean, it's the perfect controller. You've got twin sticks on here, so Virtual On, OT, and Moongate Arcade. Both are really good, too. Oh, there's 3, actually. There's Force. These might be the same. No? 3 of them. Force, too. I didn't play this, but since I'm in Brazil, I figured I'd have something on here in case somebody wants to play a soccer game. I mean, I can delete this, obviously. Undergarden, really cool game. Discs of Tron. I did that. That's one of my favorite artworks that I did. I also did Trons. I tried to use the stuff from the actual arcade cabinet, you know, the side art. And then Tron actually got a really good port to the 360, the actual arcade game. So here it is. Another one of my favorite covers I did. And it was just a matter of taking like one of the movie covers, I think, or maybe the arcade poster cover and porting it over here. I have the Sega Saturn Twin Sticks, Brian. And you used to be able to get, I don't know if you can anymore, but you used to be able to find Sega Saturn to Dreamcast controller adapters that had a little switch on the side for twin sticks. And so I've got 2 of those, lucky enough. And you can use your twin sticks from... The Saturn and the Dreamcast twin sticks are the exact same thing. They just have a different PCB inside. They look a little different. So, and the Saturn ones are way cheaper, though. So you can get... The only problem is there's only a few games you can actually use them with. But it's one of the coolest controllers you'll ever see. Trying to, really nice game. I did this one. And then there's, you know, the very well-received Tomb Raider games. My wife loved these, and I'll watch these just like she's like I'm watching a movie or something. They're just really cinematic, really nice to look at. And so I thought they deserved nicer covers, so I did these full sort of covers. I did this one, I did all of these, but yeah, I forget which one she's playing right now. She's played several of them. I've never touched them because I just prefer to watch for whatever reason. You have some sort of Micro Machine style racing games if you're into those. This is a really crappy game. Turtles Mutant Nightmare. I think I just put that on because I have the actual disc. And then again, here's one of the pinnacles of the Xbox 360 library. Xbox Live Arcade, disappeared game. And we put it on the endangered list and it went extinct. So only modified 360 owners can play it. And Konami did such a beautiful job, or whoever ported these 3 Konami games to the 360, Turtles, X-Men, and Simpsons. It's just, I wish they ported everything. Here's Tiger Woods. I'm kind of a fan. I don't play sports games, but I played this with people and came to like it. So I actually have all these discs going back to like the original until I stopped. I really didn't like the Masters edition, which might have been 14. That turned me off the game. Just didn't like it. Here's another, I think, Micro Machine style. Tetris Splash. Terraria. This is on a bunch of platforms. I think I have this for the Vita, maybe, or PSP. More 2D. Lots of good 2D stuff. So much on the 360. And you wouldn't expect it. Kind of like the way that I used to think about the PS1 back before I really looked into the library, since I have a PSIL coming. There's so much 2D stuff on the PS1, even though we think of it as this outdated 3D console. There's just tons of great 2D, and the same can be said for the 360. Lots of really good 2D. Really nice port of Street Fighter, Super Puzzle Fighter. And again, I have the CPS2 card of it. I have the actual hardware, and I'm saying this is a good port of it, so that means a lot. I did this artwork. Super Meat Boy is kind of cool. I like to play that on portables, though. Super Amazing Wagon Adventure, kind of like an X-rated or an R-rated Oregon Trail. It's pretty, and it's as good as it sounds. This is actually a pretty fun one. It's pretty funny. I did this cover. See, you haven't heard of some of this stuff. I know you haven't. Street Fighter vs. Tekken. Eh. Street Fighter 4. Some people are into that. I'm not really. I'm more into the... I'll just say it, I don't like 3D Street Fighters at all. Except for like Street Fighter EX or whatever it was back in the day. I like 2D Street Fighters. It's just my jive. Oh man, talk about incredible Xbox 360 games. Even if you have no interest at all in Star Wars after the most recent movie, check out The Force Unleashed. I'm telling you, play The Force Unleashed 1, and you'll start, once you jump into it, you'll play it all the way through. And the same with Force Unleashed 2. These are really incredible games. And they really suck you in. And you feel, when you start taking on Jedi powers, you feel powerful. This game has a way of, like, when you have to pick up, you're picking up objects the whole time, throwing them around. Once you power it up enough, I mean, you're like moving Death Stars into things. No, not Death Star. I mean, you're moving starships around using the Force and crashing them into things. And these are really cool, really cinematic games. Oh, Starfighter. Awesome Xbox game. You can play it on your 360. You can play Battlefront, both of them on here. They're really good on the 360. Because basically, once you boot in, and I'll do that now too, once you boot into your Xbox, it essentially thinks it's an Xbox, so you can see. You can play some Battlefront. But the one thing is, you'll see that you can't boot back to Aurora, you can only turn off your console from here. And you can see right now the reset glitch hack is working, so it's powered on right now. And from now until when you see the Xbox logo show up and the trailer, the glitch is waiting for its chance. It's waiting for its turn to get into the boot sequence and take over. So it's kind of like a virus, like a parasite. And right now it's got in, so now it'll boot up. And the time can be, I mean, the CR4 XL, that's why I said you want that chip, is because the older chips, some of them, like my first chip modded 360, it took like a minute or two to start up. And this one, it'll boot instantly sometimes, and then 30 seconds maybe is about the average. 15 to 20 seconds maybe is the average. And then if it's really lagging behind, it's like a 30-second boot. So that's what the reset glitch hack is. So you've seen it in action. You can see Aurora booting up. And you can customize all this stuff too with Aurora. That's kind of what's cool. Let me get back to where I was, around Star Wars. And so do I think that you should buy... It's just loading my titles here. It'll take a second. Do I think you should buy an Xbox 360? I think that more than a PS4 and more than an Xbox One, I think you should buy a 360. It's that great of a system. So Brian's asking about SSDs. In my future plan for the world, like, I'm going to have a gigantic SSD in here and in my PS2 and connected to my Wii. But at this point in time, they're just still a little too expensive to do that. I mean, I can wait 4 or 5 years and do that then, and buy a 2 terabyte SSD and I'll put that in there. But you won't actually see any. I mean, you'll see reliability and temperature gains, but you're not going to see any speed gains. I think 7800 RPMs is about as fast as you're going to get, just because it's limited by whatever the bus is on the 360. But yeah, I would love to have those in there, just because anything that you can do to keep temperatures down, to lower the energy that your 360 is using, or your PS2 or whatever, it's going to extend the life of it. And this hard drive is a spinning hard drive, so it could die at any second now, although I do have an image of it. There's a cool, if you like these style snowboarding games. I have to say, I'm not a Marvel fan. I'm not even a DC fan anymore, but I love the original Xbox's Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 just because of the sense of freedom that they gave you in exploring. Open world wasn't very big back then, and it wasn't an open world. I mean, you had things that you had to do, but it's like you were in Manhattan, and you just can fling yourself around, and these games, both of the Spider-Mans play really well. And then there were a bunch of really crappy, horrible Spider-Man games for every console like ever made, but these are the two that I actually like. Spelunky is a really cool game. Space Channel 5 Part 2 you can play on here. Dreamcast game. It's really cool. Your Soul Caliburs. Soul Calibur 2 has a really nice port. And then you've got, of course, Soul Calibur 5. The actual 360 game. And Sonic Adventure is actually it's better looking, I think, on the 360, although obviously, I mean, the best experience would be on the Dreamcast, but throw it on here. It's a cheap game. Here's Slick. It's a Game Boy styled game. It's in monochrome. Skyrim, of course. Skydrift. I don't know if I played that one. The review said it was like Crimson Skies, and I was like, oh, I need to try that, but I'll come back to this one. Skydive. It's just like a skydiving game. It sounded pretty cool. Haven't played it yet. Skullgirls. Really cool game. And we're back into the shooters. So yeah, that's basically what I have on my 360. Alright, so thank you guys for joining me tonight. We took a long look at my modded Xbox 360, the most modern mod you can do, and I tried to make a hard pitch to you guys on why you should buy one. If you don't have one, go pick up a Slim right away and send it off to your friendly neighborhood modder, and start checking out the extinct catalog of Xbox Live indie games and delisted Xbox Live arcade games, and just have fun with all those games that you bought. You can dump them right onto the hard drive. You can you can get all of your Xbox Live arcade games and get them safely transferred over to your 360. You don't have to worry about all this nonsense of online marketplaces going down. You know, once you've got them on here, they're safe and they're secure, so you can have them forever. And Microsoft decided to get rid of Xbox Live indie games and to smack the face of 10 years of indie developers, but people like us are out there appreciating their work still and seeing it the only way possible now, which is on a modified Xbox 360. So if they didn't make it to Steam and they didn't make it to Xbox One, and 99.9% of them didn't, Xbox Live indie games is extinct. But I have got everything that I bought off of it secure here on my 360, and so should you. So yeah, thanks for joining me tonight, and a huge thank you to my patrons at any level. Get access to the SmokeMonster Elite Discord channel. You can invite. You also get early access to all my YouTube videos, and a big thank you from me. So even the $1, I really appreciate it, and that's where all of this new stuff that I bought came from, the Patreon fund. Even though I spent like 3 years, I spent like 3 years ahead of Patreon money already. But anyways, I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you guys joining me. And I'll catch you every week, every Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern is my weekly stream. And if you like the video, please like it and maybe consider subscribing. Then you get notified every time I go online. Your phone will buzz, or have you ever set it up? As long as you hit that little bell icon, ring that bell like Hector Salamanca, ding, 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 ding. And then you'll get notified. But yeah, I'll catch you guys next week, and thanks again for joining me.